What's happening, Facebook family? Sorry, it's kind of dark. I'm just getting out of class. So, I want to speak a little bit on what's been going on the land from my perspective from the beginning of the camp last October to today. So, and this is like kind of a lot, but you know, try to tell the story kind of quick. And there's a reason that I'm saying this also, that I want to say this. So, last October, after the Ramapough powwow, we started a campaign, I guess you call it, but the prayer camp on the Ramapough ceremonial land in Mawa, with the purpose of bringing attention to the Pilgrim Pipeline and showing support for the Lakota out in Standing Rock. Now, it's known, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that we, the Lenape people, we never lived in teepees. However, the reason we put the teepees up was to show our solidarity with the Lakota out in Standing Rock and their fight. The idea was that we could use our position being, you know, just 30 miles away from New York City to get a different type of attention that at the time they weren't really getting in Standing Rock. The name of the camp, Split Rock Sweetwater, came about when Chief Perry and some others hold on, let me rephrase that because I just messed myself up speaking. So it's called Split Rock Sweetwater because Split Rock, or also known as Pigeon Rock by some of the Ramapough elders, is a spot up Stag Hill Road here in Mawa, New Jersey, where one of our elders, Mud Turtle, Doc Charles Morgan, says back in the day when he was younger, up into the 60s, 70s, the Ramapough women used to go up there every full moon and have their full moon ceremonies up there. And they would have other ceremonies also, strawberry ceremony and harvest ceremony, different things like that. So it was a place for not only ceremony but also of community. And Sweetwater is the translation of the word Ramapough. So the name of the camp, Split Rock Sweetwater, is Split Rock, the place of community for our tribe, our family, and Sweetwater, you know, being who we are. So okay, camp starts. We begin to have ceremonies on the ceremonial land and teachings, informing people about the crisis of this pipeline. Now, the Pilgrim Pipeline, just a little info on it, is proposed to go from Albany, New York to Linden, New Jersey, going through the mountains here in Mawa. Now, they wanted to go through the biggest Ramapough burial ground that's here in Mawa. All right. This is like, you know, some people say, oh, it's an Indian burial ground, and they think of some, I don't know, cinematic burial ground. You know, it's a fantasy to them. They don't really understand. But this is a cemetery that has our family in there. You know, now my family, they moved out of here some generations ago. But my last relative who lived up here, my fourth great grandfather or third great grandfather, Lewis Miller, he fought in the Civil War, and he's buried in that burial ground. One of my cousins, Owl, his grandfather's buried there, you know, and there's thousands of Ramapough that's buried there. So these people that want to put the pipeline in, they're they just wanted to desecrate this whole cemetery with our family. They wouldn't do that to any of their own cemeteries, their own graves. It's a big smack in the face. So we wanted to bring awareness to that, bring awareness to the fact that the oil they want to send through this pipeline is that same crude oil that they were mining. I'm trying to get better light because it's really dark, but it's the same crude oil that's going through the Dakota Access Pipeline. So they want to send it on train to Albany, send it down from Albany to Linden to refine it, send the refined oil from Linden back to Albany so they can set it in barges on the Hudson River for export. Now this Bakken crude oil is one of the worst types of oil. And if this pipeline were to leak, as we know it would, because pipelines, they leak, right? If it were to leak going under the ground in the Ramapough aquifer, 55-gallon oil spill would destroy the aquifer. This aquifer feeds water to 4 million people. So it goes from them disrespecting our people, the Ramapough, my family, to a crime against humanity. You know, this would be a crime against the state of New Jersey and the southern state of New York. So, you know, it's all groovy. We're like, oh, you know, this is really admirable, helping the people who may not even like us, which we know is a fact because there's people who truly don't like us, as you'll hear more from what I'm going to tell you just about this here, not even the Ramapough history. Now, there's this guy here in the Polo Club where our land sits. Our land, by the way, is 13.6 acres. And Mawa sits in this private community known as the Polo Club. The president of the Polo Club, I won't say his name, but he's a member of the American Organization of Petroleum Hydrologists, fracking, and he was an environmental crisis manager for AIG, I believe it was. So this guy, before we knew any of this stuff, he comes over here to the land. It was myself, the Mohawk elder, Ganaguio, Uncle Harold. It was Chief Perry. It was Charles Morgan, Doc, you know, Mud Turtle. So the guy comes over and he asks what we're doing here. We tell him. He says, oh, that's really admirable. And he says to us, now, when you cross the bridge coming into the Polo Club, on our property, there sits some electric boxes. They have some outlets. He says we can use the outlets if we ever need electricity. So we were charging the phones, you know, for some time. And he also said that right after that we should build our big house up on a pad of soil to prevent it from flooding if it rains a lot and things like that. So fast forwarding a month later, I believe it was November 24th, cops come. I'm gonna go over the whole thing because majority of everyone knows what happened when the cops came, but an exaggerated amount of officers came here because they said this same individual called them complaining that we were stealing electricity after he told us, you know, that it was all right for us to use this electricity. On Veterans Day, cop comes also saying that this same individual called them because we were illegally moving soil. After he said, yeah, you guys should put soil here. And then the funny thing is we weren't moving soil. We were putting the rest of the poles of the big house in the ground to complete the circle. So we're like, wow, this guy's a bad guy. Moving on more, we did a press release on the steps of Mayor de Blasio's office in February. It was us, it was Roberto Mucaro, who is an NGO at the, what's it called? United Nations, at the United Nations, and he's a member of the the United Treaty Council. It was us, it was him, it was Sid Hill, who's the Taradaho, or the chief above the whole Iroquois Confederacy, the Haudenosaunee, and many others. So anyhow, the reason we were there was to urge Mayor de Blasio to divest New York City from Wells Fargo, because Wells Fargo is a main funder in these pipelines, in the Pilgrim Pipeline, and the AIM Pipeline, Dakota Access Pipeline, KXL, these different things. Now we begin to get more heat from the town. We later found out that the president of the town council of Mahwah, Robert Hermanson, is a VP of vice president for Wells Fargo. It's like, well, God dog, you know, these people have a lot of interest. They were hitting us with these crazy fines for bringing mulch in. They say that there's a law, if you bring in, I believe it's 10 square yards of mulch onto your property, you need a permit. So they fined us because we didn't bring a permit. But the funny thing is, the neighbors called the cops because we had mulch brought in. No one ever came to see how much mulch it was, ever. Okay? They were fining us for having tents. First they were saying they were fining us because we had permanent structures. We have not one permanent structure on this property at all. Then they changed the permanent structure to structures period, saying that it's illegal for us to have the teepees and the tents because we didn't have a permit. Funny thing is, we got in our discovery, you know, from court, an email, and my cousin Owl, he spoke about this a few times on videos. This neighbor who lives here in the Polo Club, her house is right on the other side of our property. She can't stand us. We call her the dog poop lady because she's thrown bags of dog feces on our property. We also call her a stalker because there's been several instances that she'll stand on the other side of the bridge and watch us through binoculars and take pictures of us, okay? So this email is her to several people on the council here, the mayor and others. And it says, me paraphrasing, it says, we know it is not that what they're doing is not illegal with having the tents and teepees. And then says later on in that same email that if it's not illegal what they're doing, we need to make new laws so that it is illegal. Okay? About a week later, that's when they begin to issue the fines for us having these tents and teepees without a permit. It's madness. So we see a lot of this stuff that's happening. It's not that we're breaking any actual laws. It's that they're just doing this. I'll put it like this. Mahwah right now is being sued by the state of New Jersey, all right, for creating prejudicial laws. So now going on, and I'm not giving everything within the year. I'm just giving certain things, okay? So you can see why we've been doing certain things that we've been doing. So us beginning this here prayer camp, this space, as a space to have our ceremonies, invite people and have teachings, to inform people of the dangers of the pipeline and of other environmental crises, has now become a fight for us to have our land and to have our ceremonies. Okay? Now, where was I? Okay. So, Chief Perry and others on the tribal council began to consider New York State recognition for the purpose or the belief that having that extra recognition from the state of New York would assist us legally with what we're doing. You know, we'll have more benefits, more help, things like that. So that's why some people saw in the newspaper a few months ago, I forget what month it was, but that Chief Perry was thinking about, was considering state recognition. It was to try and help this here, trying to help us with what's going on with this racist and evil town. Okay, so we began to get fined for not applying for permits. We applied for permits, they denied the permits, saying that the land is not zoned for prayer, but it is zoned for, and I'm not going to name all of them, just a few things, but that the land is zoned to be an open space. The land is zoned to hunt and to fish and for historic edifices, which our big house is exactly that. You cannot get any more historic in this state than a big house. We are the history of this state. We are the history of this region here. So they say that we can't do that. We can't pray here on our property. Then they said that we can't assemble here on our property. Now, I don't know. Maybe I don't know anything about this country. When I took my oath, swearing in to be a soldier in the United States Army, it was an oath to uphold the Constitution. And I'm pretty sure we have a right in the Constitution to assemble freely and a freedom of speech. So those things are happening. Now I come to what happened yesterday. And you have to forgive me, please, because I know I'm in my mind, I'm speaking, everything is in order. But if things aren't in order, it's because I'm really frustrated with this town, and I'm really frustrated with this negative propaganda that they've been trying to put out against us here for what we're doing, against the people who have been helping us, assisting us, against my tribe, against my family, who's been going through this stuff since the 17th century nonstop. Okay, so I'm kind of irritated about the whole thing, so please forgive me. So now, with the trial that we've been going through, that I like to call Ramapough versus Mawa, I was only able to make it to 2 of the trial dates. I went last week on Tuesday and this yesterday. Yesterday, I believe his official title is zoning officer, Mawa Town zoning officer, or code enforcer or whatnot. Kelly, I believe it's Michael Kelly, but last name Kelly. He actually said, if there's 3 or more Ramapough on this land, on our property, we have to go and seek a permit. Otherwise, we're breaking the law because the land is not zoned to assemble. So, you see, it's gone from us trying to bring awareness to Mother Earth, to the crises that are afflicting Mother Earth, to the people who run this town being a part of the issue, being a part of harming Mother Earth, and them not liking what we're doing because it's stopping their money flow. Okay? Now they begin to try and stop us, and since they can't do exactly what they did to the Lakota and all the water protectors and Standing Rock, because they were able to hide them, keep the media away and, do things, and it was hidden in a sense, They can't really do that right here. So they're attacking us in a different way. They're attacking us through their corrupt legal system. They're attacking us by spreading lies about us and our allies. They're attacking us by essentially threatening individuals who are groups, coalitions, things like this, schools who are aiding us. They're threatening them with different things. Okay? And we see, I'm so irritated, I'm so sorry. But we see all of this happening because these individuals are the people who are making the money from the fracking. Actually, when we were doing the teachings and trying to inform everyone of the harms of this pipeline, The president of the polo club, who I mentioned prior, he actually was also sending things saying that there's nothing wrong with the pipelines, that no harm can come from having the pipelines. Okay. Then we see, in the courtroom, they say they blatantly show their racist colors. They blatantly lie. They say that we've never attempted to get permits, which is a lie. We even have a permit for the big house here to have a long house that was granted to us back in, I believe, December 2011 or January 2012. And I say those two dates because I heard both those two dates in court. So we had this permit since then. Now, we weren't able to find it for some time, but it was known we had it. We let the council know we had it and such. Once it came back up from, I believe it was Chief Vincent Mann, Turtle Clan Chief, it was presented by he and Chief Perry to the mayor of Mawa. The town, under the zoning officer, Kelly, they rescinded this. They rescinded our permit. This permit says that we are being permitted, and I'm paraphrasing, but that we're being permitted to have a longhouse for the purposes of religion, of prayer and cultural assembly. And they took it from us and then said, well, the permit wasn't any good. You can't do what you're doing, even though the town said otherwise. And even though Bergen County in New Jersey has recognized our land as a ceremonial land, to the extent that when you're on 202 and you see the signs that says Ramapough ceremonial land and they points into the direction, Bergen County, they're the ones that gave us those signs. Yet the town of Mawa is saying, well, you can't pray here. Well, you can't assemble there. Well, you can't do this. You can't do that. You're breaking the law for being who you are. Where have we heard this before? This sounds so similar to England. This is why the Pilgrims left from England. This is what the Nazis did to the Jews. This is what America has always done to us. So now we're sitting waiting for this verdict, whether or not the judge is going to allow the town to do this evilness to us, whether the judge is going to say, you have to pay the fines, you can't pray there, the big house that you have, they took the permit away, it's no good. And then we'll be like, oh man, we have to wonder whether or not he's going to try and take our rights away, our God-given rights away from us, all because we were trying to stand up for what's right. And these people who are the ones causing this harm are being affected financially. It's so mad to me. When I was growing up, I was homeschooled. When I was growing up, my mother used to have me watch certain things. Eyes on the Prize speaks about the civil rights movements and things like that. Reading the history of America and elsewhere. And I would think, wow, man, I can't believe that people used to actually hang others just because of how they looked. I can't believe they really used to lynch you. Now, living this and seeing the things that I'm seeing, it kills me because nothing has changed except for the way that they do it. They're lynching us right now. They're attempting to lynch us right now. And it's bothering me, so I had to say something. And I thank everyone I think the people who didn't know much about the Ramapough prior, but have sacrificed so much in order to bring justice to my tribe. I thank my tribe because we're some of the strongest people in this country. So I had to get that off my chest. I apologize again if I've been rambling, if I've been sounding like a babbling fool. And I thank everyone for listening who listened. Have a nice evening.